Okay, so today what I wanted to do was talk about a idea and a big discussion that is always present online about a certain character from Resident Evil 7 from the title. You probably already know who I'm talking about. Lucas Baker. Lucas Baker is probably the most interesting character in 7, not for what he does in the game, but because of everything that he's involved with, like behind the scenes. A lot of people who are massive fans of Resident Evil 7 and the series as a whole kind of all almost exclusively agree that he kind of should have been the next big bad in the series. He had the potential to be, on a level almost the same as Wesker in a way, which is what a lot of people have been saying about him. Obviously, I'm not at all disappointed with what we have now. I think Village and the story continuing from 7 in Village is incredible. I think it's really, really good. There are things that came up in 7 that do still need to be focused on a little bit more. But for now, we'll focus on Lucas and his kind of character, his backstory, how he is kind of related to the overall story that is being kind of created in 7 and 8. And just kind of theorize what his kind of involvement could have been until he, inevitably died at the end of the Not Hero DLC. So, without any further ado, let's jump into why Lucas Baker was a wasted opportunity for the series. So from the very beginning of his introduction to the game, he is clearly involved with things that are secret. There is a lot of files throughout 7 that do definitely hint at him working with someone and monitoring Evelyn for someone in exchange for them helping him kind of not be affected by her influence, basically, which doesn't obviously kind of 100% work, but he is a lot more, out of all of the Bakers in the house, except Zoe, of course, he is more in control of himself, because obviously Jack and Marguerite are a bit out there throughout the course of the game, but Lucas is very level-headed in a way. Obviously he's batshit crazy, but he's smart, he thinks, he's a bit more aware of what's going on than the other two. Anyway, jump forward to his portion of the game in 7. You do kind of come across some things that indicate that he's in contact with people who know of Evelyn's existence and like how to kind of deal with her, and these people are obviously the connections. If you don't know who the connections are, I've made a video a while ago talking about all the backstory we have of them right now. They are kind of a subplot at the minute, which is kind of disappointing in my opinion, because they are essentially this new led company, who are basically Umbrella, and it hasn't been really brought forward enough yet, personally, I would think. But if you don't know who they are, to briefly sum up who they are, obviously yes, like I said, they are essentially this new Umbrella. A little bit more covert, a little bit more secretive, they're not really kind of publicly known as like a medical company or whatever. They are a black market bioweapon creator and seller who make weapons for people of interest, people who want to buy them, and they create Evelyn. In 7, they are fully responsible for that, so they're a bunch of bad guys basically, and they are run by, again, I forget the name of the guy, I think it's Brandon something, maybe Bradley something, but he runs them, I think. Well, the law suggests he does, and he is like an ex-high up in Umbrella, so essentially they are the new Umbrella. But anyway, back to Lucas. Yes, he is involved with them in some way. He does seem to kind of briefly work with them. They do kind of go over a bit more in the DLC, the Not Hero DLC. There's like a whole lab you find, and he does seem to be working with them, but he does betray them and does get them all killed, the ones that are there at least. But he is trying to kind of send them some data from Evelyn, just to kind of get it all out there, like what he's found out, what he knows that she can do and stuff like that. And obviously Chris is kind of been looking for the connections basically for a while. He knows of their existence. He knows that Lucas is in contact with them, so he is trying to stop him from revealing this information and getting this information out, because that will be very bad. I do briefly want to add though another thing that is, again, introduced in 7 but not really ever kind of mentioned again, is this new blue umbrella that Chris is working with in 7. I kind of feel like that's been scrapped a little bit. It's a tiny little bit. There's nods to it in Village, like for instance, the healing injectors that Chris uses in the Village portion where you play as him do still have the blue umbrella on them. But he's very much involved more so with the BSAA in Village. So I don't know what's going on there. Hopefully that isn't something they've scrapped, because that was definitely an interesting storyline to kind of see develop. But yeah, so back to Lucas. He's a smart dude. Like, if you've played 7, you'll know, especially when you get to the bit where you can go into his room, he's got a lot of awards for creating things, like, you know, science projects and stuff like that. He knows what he's doing, he's not an idiot, and that's clearly obvious throughout his portion of the main game and the Not Hero DLC. Like, he's smart, he makes traps that he knows, well, that a usual person would fall for. Like, he's not dumb, he can manipulate people, he can trick people, he's not, yeah, he's not an idiot. So, he's just gonna fit the criteria of a normal Resident Evil big baddie guy. You know, look at Wesker, like, he's a smart dude, he easily fooled people to make them think he was on their side, even though he's definitely not throughout the whole of Resident Evil 1. Lucas's involvement in the connections could have made him a bit more important if they kept him alive, and maybe he did get away at the end of this DLC, but, you know, he doesn't. Like, there's a lot of wasted opportunity to kind of continue stuff that happened in 7 with him into the sequels. Plus the whole interactions with him throughout the game, he's a good, well-developed character. You know, his personality is great. He's actually quite funny, but he's also not, again, not to be taken not seriously. Like, you have to take him seriously because he will kill you in any way that he can. For example, the whole birthday tape scenario, when you play as Clancy and you see Clancy's fate, that whole thing was completely set up by him. And it's smart, you know, it's like giving someone the hope that they'll get out, but he already knows it's not going to happen. Like, it's very big bad material, just doing things like that to people, you know, convincing them that they're fine and they're gonna get away, and just all you gotta do is just finish this room and you'll be free, you can go. But you definitely can't go, because he's not going to let that happen. Very sinister. Now, in terms of kind of plot points in the future they could have had with him, I do feel like Chris probably could have been tracking him throughout Village and 9, and then eventually confronting him, which leads to the full introduction of the Connections group. You know, you find out where they are, what they're doing, and it would give a lot of old school vibes back to the series throughout the whole, you know, ending parts of the games, because, you know, how it is kind of present in 7, not as drastically, but remember at the end of, like, 1, 2 and 3 specifically, when you end up going to, like, the underground facilities and you find the labs where all the monsters are being made, you know, progress through those, more information about what's been developed there and stuff like that. That kind of feeling from an end part of a game, especially with 9, which I feel like will kind of hopefully go more into the Connections, would be really cool to see. And I feel like that would have been a really good way to introduce that side of things again, with Lucas being tracked to a location, and it's like a fully fleshed out laboratory where the Connections are working on new bioweapons outside of just the molded, and, you know, you gotta stop them, like, now. Like, that would be a really cool way. And obviously, you know, you would confront Lucas, and maybe he would still turn into the monster that he is in the boss fight at the end of this DLC, because, you know, he's technically still infected. It's just that the Connections helped him be able to think for himself. So he's not cured, but he doesn't have the connection to Evelyn, so she can't talk to him, really. Not as much, at least, because obviously she does throughout the game, but he has a bit more self-control. Like, she can't manipulate him as much. But overall, you know, he's a great character. I thought his section of 7 was actually quite good. Some people don't really like it, but I thought it was quite fun. Definitely a little bit of a... it was more relaxed than the other ones, in terms of it was mainly puzzles and a few fights every now and again. It did have that old school feel, but people's opinions do differ, and that's fine. Let me know what you think of his character. Do you think he should have maybe been continued in a sequel? Do you think how they ended him was good? Let me know, because it's an interesting topic. A lot of people do kind of think he is an underrated character. Like, he should have been in it more. Like, he had the potential to be a big villain, and that kind of just killed him off in the DLC. But Let me know your thoughts on that. I'm always interested to know. And yeah, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you all tomorrow for a brand new video.